I don't think I'll ever have a stream that's going to be lasting that long.
I'm kind of curious as to who does.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. Okay, that sounded weird. Screw it. Hey guys, it's what's called Tom Raster here. I'm with the Romance Scrooge, and yeah, I got it wrong. Anyways, we're here to talk about the Samurai Jack episode, XCV, an episode that was pushed forward a little bit in time thanks to an April Fool's joke on the behalf of Rick and Morty, and causing a little bit of a rift between the fandoms, admittedly. Which is a little bit of a. I've seen some people throw some pretty bad hate on it. I think it's really funny, and see, I like both shows.
I love both about Rick and Morty pushing back Samurai Jack, but that's the most I was a little disappointed. I'll admit I was disappointed for a while, but after a week I was like, eh.
I mean, it's not like we're not getting the episode. We got the episode. We just had to wait another week. And if you're like me and you like Rick and Morty, this was I don't know, this was really good. I really liked the fact that I really liked that Rick and Morty episode. I gotta get myself some of that Milan sauce.
Mulan Szechuan dipping sauce.
Yeah.
McNugget dipping sauce.
I'm actually a little surprised. The crossover fan art, that's a huge thing on Tumblr. But I've only seen maybe like 2 posts that truly crossed over Rick and Morty and Samurai Jack. In the same fan fiction-y type of way people cross over the shows with, say, Gravity Falls and such. I've only seen 2 posts that do that, and one of them was a pornographic post. Because that's what the internet is for, apparently. And the other post
what else is new?
And the other post featured Rick and Samurai Jack behind the scenes, and and it was just a sweet little buddy thing about Rick trying to convince Jack to instead of searching for time travel, trying to time travel to a different period so he can get together with Johnny Bravo or something like that. Oh, hey, my face is still on.
Yep.
I mean, it's not that big a deal. Let me go ahead and shut it off. It's a little weird with it on. Hi guys, if you guys are watching this is what I look like. Take a good look right now because I am going to be turning my camera off. And my camera's off. I did not realize my camera was still on. Oh well. Yeah. So, yeah. I kind of want more Rick and Morty Samurai Jack fan art. Just because I like seeing crossover fan art in general. Okay, so we want to get into the actual episode. In this episode, this episode's a bit more comedic than the previous episodes, which isn't to say that the previous episodes didn't have aspects of comedy, but this one felt genuinely feel good for most of the episode, so to speak. Most of the serious elements were still played for laughs, and we for the first time in a while we get to see Jack somewhat happy.
That was
Thoughts?
definitely a new one, considering. Yeah, the last few episodes have been pretty heavy in regards to Jack grappling or dealing with his inner monologue. Here it looked like he was kind of starting to win that tug of war, or that he was able to find some kind of peace of mind or resolve.
I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna talk. It's nice seeing Jack smile every once in a while, and in this case, the smile was brought upon by the slain remains of some sort of beast that he proceeded to wear as armor. He really likes the back fur.
I love that comment. It was freaking hilarious.
The okay, as for the actual plot of the episode, this one kind of sort of takes off where the last one came off, after apparently both Jack and Ashy survived the fall, which it was right. Everybody knew that they would survive.
Yep.
They survived the fall. After a screw up with one of her weapons, Ashy finds herself hanging and disarmed in front of Jack, and Jack, for the rest of the episodes, tries to appeal to her more human side. Hopefully, he believes that he might be able to redeem her, and also a big part of this episode takes place inside the stomach of a giant worm.
It was cosmic just how much creative license they took with that. They had this entire ecosystem with a whole bunch of symbiotic creatures living inside of the worm. From jellyfish and aquatic inspired creatures to other various insects. It was just fascinating by there being this completely different world inside this worm. I'm wondering just how big this thing was. I'd almost like to see a size comparison with a whale. Like the species of whale that's considered the biggest animal in the world. How big is the worm, scale wise, in comparison? I'll bet it's far, far bigger.
Well, looking it up on Google, the largest blue whale can be up to 98 feet in length.
Holy crap.
Now, I'm a terrible judge of distance. I think the worm was a bit bigger than that. The worm swallowed a forest whole. So, yeah. And the inside of the worm was comparable to, like, say, a there were like freaking planes throughout the entire thing. There was a cave in it. There is at least usually when you're eaten by something, you'd expect some sort of sense of claustrophobia in it. But no, this worm was huge, and the innards made it seem even bigger. I mean, it's that's just how animation works. Things tend to be bigger on the inside than they are on the outside, but even what we see from the outside, I'm not sure how big of a stretch that would be to see something that size. You know what the inside of the worm really reminded me of, though?
What?
The way it was designed, it kind of looked like Wander Over Yonder, to be completely honest. You noticed
Holy
that?
crap! Now that I think about it, you definitely bring up a valid point there. You definitely have a lot of the more curved shapes, the brighter, more surreal color palettes and designs. It definitely had a very vibrant alien-like feel to it.
I mean, I'm really only going to like chalk this up to the fact that, well, both of the creators work together and they obviously share the same style. I'm not going to chalk it up to a direct reference because I feel like a direct reference, if you're going to reference something, you're going to make it obvious that you're referencing something. This felt a little bit more subtle, and you only caught on to it when I mentioned it. So I don't think it was a direct allusion to the show, especially since the two shows seem to be on, entirely opposite sides of the animation spectrum. Though the more I think about it, we are talking about two lone wanderers traveling the traveling the universe of which they inhabit.
Tone and theme wise, they are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Stylistically, there's maybe a little bit more common ground, but that's only because the two artists work together. And even then, Samurai Jack went out of its way to avoid some of the stylistic similarities it had with, say, the Powerpuff Girls by removing all the outlines. And meanwhile, Wander Over Yonder seems to be more of an evolution of that Powerpuff Girls art style mixed in with a what does Wander Over Yonder look like? I'm trying to think. Usually I get them up. Usually I'm pretty good at tracking down what thing it looks like stylistically. I know Wander Over Yonder takes quite a bit from like old cartoons from the 50s to 70s. Stylistically, I guess it probably owes a lot to, say, UPA and stuff like that, I guess. Samurai Jack owes a lot to well, I meant they've straight up used Hanna-Barbera characters in a few of the episodes. So,
Don't really have much to say on that particular front, since direct compare and contrast or points of direct compare and contrast aren't really coming to mind. So on the note of art direction or what, it's kind of interesting to think how Gendy and Craig McCracken started out working together on several different teams before they had their breakout hits with Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack, and how you could compare and contrast certain elements of each art style in each one. Like the Powerpuff Girls, you had sort of geometric buildings with the lineless vector kind of style, specific color choices to create a sense of distance and stuff. There was even that very flat two-dimensional feel to earlier episodes of the Powerpuff Girls. Samurai Jack kind of sits in the same ballpark, but where the Powerpuff Girls stood out from the backgrounds due to thick outlines and such, Samurai Jack really had to up consideration to what shapes looked like with distance and perspective, what color choices would be used, how a scene would transition into minimalism. So definitely had to focus on color palette to make things stand out or create the illusion of something disappearing into the distance.
Everything in Samurai Jack is also like heavily textured, I noticed. Like like instead of using the more flat colors of, say, the Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack seems to go for a more this was at one point drawn on paper, or at least we're trying to make it look like it was drawn on paper at some point in time. So you get stuff that looks kind of like say, I wanted to say sponges. I'm probably not the best. I'm probably not the best. I don't know that much about animated backgrounds, but I know that there was a thing about backgrounds created using paint sponges. You see a lot of that in Samurai Jack, or you see a lot of stylistic similarities to that in Samurai Jack.
In regards to Samurai Jack stylization now, it's definitely the same kind of art direction and approach with some changes, like more emphasis on creating dimensionality or making characters look more three-dimensional and dynamic, and taking advantage of what technology is available. I'd say that this is revisiting the same kind of stylization and approach, but several years later, when you have better technology, or even things that make the process a bit easier, and the cast and crew and team are just taking advantage of it, like bumping up the overall quality of the production because they have the means and resources to do so.
Well, yeah, that sounds about right. I think this is really silly, but I think this is the first time we've ever seen them. No, it'd be the second time. It'd be the second time, I think. If I'm wrong, but I think this is the second time we've seen Jack address the issues of clothing. In this case, he straight up picks it up off of the ground. But this show has more than its fair share of clothing damage throughout the entire series. And the newer episodes seem to be no different from it. Though it does make one wonder, where does Jack keep getting all these clothes?
I'm wondering why he traded in his robe for armor and such. I'm wondering if he just kind of had a change of heart or started looking into picking up different resources and trying out different clothing styles and stuff after he lost his sword. That losing the sword wasn't necessarily just losing quite possibly his most powerful weapon. I think that was a huge part of his identity too. He's trained in a lot of different weaponry and such, but the sword was pretty much at the core of who he was at that. He's known as a samurai with this powerful sword that can cut through just about anything. The one weapon that would actually be able to slice through a coup. And thinking about it, once he lost the sword, not only did he lose this powerful tool, he also lost a part of himself, a part of... I'm guessing that's what kind of started his questioning his identity or where he was going to go, and it just amped up from there as he used different weapons, and especially the whole I'm not aging, I'm trapped and lost in time. It's just kind of interesting to think about just how iconic that kimono and sword are, and just how different Jack comes across as a character without that. It's not just the beard, it's the armor, his actively picking up and using different weapons, having to adapt and find clothing or something to protect the rest of his body. He's running around in a loincloth now. He doesn't have the magic kimono like before, where the audience assumed he repaired it off screen. Just kind of interesting to think about that detail. Jack definitely is a much different character here. He's definitely gone through a lot off screen. And he...
Something happened?
No, I'm just at the end of my rambling right there.
I mean, yeah. I think actually I'm pretty sure based on everything you just said, and everything you said does make a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure the way the series is developing, right before, and this is Todd. Actually, the more I think about it, the more likely this is definitely going to happen. But right before in the episodes leading up to the ultimate finale of the series, we're probably going to see some sort of return to form. We're probably going to see Jack losing the beard and donning something similar to his own clothing before he faces off with a coup. Just to just as a sign to the audience that he has found himself. He knows who he is and he knows what he has to do. So at the same time, I also find it really interesting. You look at them up. They've been using Jack's old model as a symbol of his as a symbol of his the voices in his head, the regrets he has had in the past. Ooh, that was weird. I touched a headphone wire. Ignore that little buzzing noise. I fixed it.
Please.
So I suppose there is kind of sort of a well, see, I guess in some ways that idea is kind of self-destructive because it is representing his regrets. But at the same time, he has to confront his past at some point in time, and maybe that involves redonning his old outfit. On a more literal note, less thematically speaking, I'm pretty sure his armor is the remains of I'm pretty sure it's made out of the remains of several robots that he killed.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, in the years he was gone. But even in the original series, he still, I suppose he knows how to. It'd actually be pretty interesting now that I think of it, because of how the show just tends to look and how the show tends to be paced, and the type of effort they seem to put into very small actions. I actually don't think a scene of Jack repairing his clothing just to show how it works would be too thematically off, or even particularly different than what we already see. The show already moves along kind of slowly anyways, and we get a lot of especially in some of the first episodes of the season, we have a lot of shots of I don't know, we have a lot of shots where the camera just kind of lingers.
Yeah, atmospheric shots showing up, the trees changing color, autumn, maybe sort of establishing this feeling of change is in the air.
Yeah. So, I actually don't think, I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen. That's really, it's ultimately a really trivial thing to show. But even if it's trivial or not, I don't think it'd be, I don't think I'd be too surprised if it were to show up at some point in the future. Just Jack repairing his own clothing. Okay. Other things to mention, Jack has a brand new hallucination in the form of a puffball. That was also voiced by Tara Strong.
Tara Strong already voices Hoshi. Come on, bring in some other people. There, I said it. Come at me, bruh.
I like the puffball. I'm not really sure what to think of it. Like, I like it. I like the fact that it was there, and it did serve a point in the episode. But like the biggest question I have about it is, why is it a puffball? I mean, it's not. I don't know. Even though it's a detail I like, it's also an unnecessary detail, and I guess there's something a little weird about that.
I think there's going to be a relevant point as to why that particular hallucination is a puffball and it has the voice that it does. Just tentative to speculate on it at this point in time, since it did just get introduced. I'd say just pull back a little and wait.
Okay. Okay. See, there is one thing that I really want to talk about, but I feel like it's going to be a really bulky conversation because there's quite a lot to talk into. you want to talk about more of the trivial stuff before we get to that, or do you want to talk about this just immediately? And get
Let's
back
just
to
get into the meat of the conversation. Let's just get
okay. Well, let's talk Jack and Hoshi's relationship.
I'm sorry for laughing. The first thing that came to mind, I'm a horrible person, is people debating, is she his love interest? Is there going to be some kind of potential ship here? And then other people argue or thinking, hey, there might be some kind of mentor-student relationship that buds here. I'm leaning more in that direction, personally, even though you do have the puffball making the comment, what did you expect? A hug and a kiss? People are gonna take that comment out of context. As somebody who used to make videos over analyzing ships and stuff like that, oh yeah, that is something that I can see people pointing as dangling ship bait. But that aside, the overall dynamic between Jack and Ashi so far, Ashi plays more of a character role to Jack finding some kind of peace of mind or continuing to find some kind of resolve. He needed some kind of foil in order to ground him and really progress where his character's going. Because before, he was just having arguments with the crazy side of himself, trying to figure out where he stands with his morality. And then, when Ashi enters the picture, he's trying to figure out whether or not he's determined to rescue her, and he's determined to figure out whether or not he can show her the truth about the world. Figure out who she is, how she got so screwed up, why she's so determined to believe in coup. By investing in her to some extent, it helps him get away from what kind of twisted mental things he's thinking about and trying to figure out how to overcome his own guilt or just get back to the kind of noble, righteous person he was before. I think part of why he's so determined to rescue her and help her out is to help himself out as well. That's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You. It's all. I trying to put together the words that I'm trying to put together the words I'm going to say. There's almost a sense of redemption for Jack himself if he manages to redeem Ashi, I feel. Like, we've been talking about the shades of gray that Jack's been having. He probably feels like he needs a redemption. He probably feels like and he probably feels that helping Ashi out and revealing Ashi to the truth might possibly help with that. At the same time, there is a bit of an inner conflict going on here. Ashi, why does Ashi deserve saving? She spent a vast majority of her appearance trying to kill Jack. And throughout most of this episode, she is trying to kill Jack. If only for the sake of self-defense, there is a bit of reason for Jack to not care about her. We see this tension, especially during his hallucination scene. As for the mentor relationship versus the shipping relationship, I'm with you on a lot of this. I think it would make more thematic sense and more sense as a story for Samurai Jack to play the role of a mentor figure to Ashi. I don't know. I can't really see him as developing any truly romantic feelings with any person in the future. I mean, I suppose that could be the potential cause of some conflict because it might cause him to have one of those should I stay or should I go type of conflicts that you see in like every other movie about a fish out of water. But in the end, I still want Jack to go home. I still think Jack's happy ending is in the past.
Oh yeah.
So I like the idea of Samurai Jack. I like the idea of Samurai Jack work acting as a mentor character, but I'm not necessarily against the idea of them being in a ship together. Compared to some other ships out there, this one, considering that this one, it would indeed be between two characters who are unambiguously adults, I'm perfectly fine with it. But, it's also not that interesting a ship, I don't think. You see plenty of ships where you're shipping where you're shipping two people who don't get along with each other. That's a very, very common type of relationship you see in a lot of media. And I don't think Samurai Jack needs to go in that direction.
No, the whole hate turning into love kind of dynamic, that really just doesn't work here. To be honest, the way things are right now, or where the series is sitting, it'd feel really awkward unless they really had quite the ass pull or something major shifted in the relationship dynamic between these two. It's a hard sell seeing Ashi really get over this whole kill the samurai thing that's been pounded into her head since childhood. I see it more as she's eventually going to have a grudging respect for Jack and they might become friends of some sort. But even that's a bit of a stretch. I don't see them. It's going to be interesting enough seeing how they're going to get to the point where they're on some kind of decent terms. How Ashi is going to overcome what screwed up stuff she's had drilled into her head since childhood. And how she might even turn around and try and play some role in Jack returning to being the noble samurai to some extent. How they might help each other out in their own personal journey to some degree. But that's as far as I see their relationship going. Romance feels incredibly awkward here. Or I'm just going to say it, the way the series is set up, any kind of romance beyond Jack kind of flirting with the gal or something like that, like you have Ikra and the Southern Belle, those were short-lived. They were just some kind of spice or something secondary to the main plot.
And one of them was a coup in disguise.
Yeah, I know. I was just using Ikra as an example since that was the first thing that came to mind.
Like, that's kind of an elephant in the room when you bring it up. Well, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who out there who would love to see a coup and Samurai Jack.
Oh God, oh, that's a big no, thank you.
Oh my God, that'd be like the biggest ass pull in the history of Western animation.
Is it horrible that I'd kind of be okay with that ending if we didn't get season 5 and it was still just kind of going between? I'm a horrible person, but I'm fascinated by the idea of Samurai Jack ending with that. If it'd been like the wrap up for season 4, but season 5, no.
That yeah. Okay. 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 Was there another point? I feel like there was something else I wanted to bring up between Jack and Ashi. I'm trying to remember what other things. Well, I think another thing that kind of sort of adds to that relationship between Jack and Hoshi is they're playing up Hoshi's immaturity throughout the entire episode. Usually you don't do that with a love interest.
That's very true. Actually, thinking about it, that adds another layer of awkwardness to it. I mean, it'd be one thing if Jack were just as immature, you had the two sort of teasing each other in an over-the-top, obnoxious way, but that's not something the series is going for.
Yeah, Jack, though Jack is allowed to experience some emotions other than just, complete brooding. For the most part, Jack is a character who, goes between being serious and being comically serious. Most of the a lot of the humor comes from his reactions, his bafflement of some of the weirder things around him. That's funnier to me. I mean, it'd be I don't think well, I mean, I'm sure the show would still work because the show already has a lot going for it anyways. But I think given Samurai Jack's Samurai Jack is meant to be the classical hero character. It does get a little bit deeper than that in that they started introducing shades of gray to the character. But for the most part, this character isn't Star-Lord. This character isn't meant to be seen as a snarky guy who's immature. He's supposed to be seen as for the most part very mature. That's also something I think that really helps with its with the show's conversion into an actual straight up adult cartoon. But
I'm trying to think of what other action adventure cartoons or animated series there are where the lead is a bit more serious and down to earth rather than snarky and obnoxious, but every other lead that comes to mind. But then again, I tend to gravitate towards some of the snarksters, like Soul from Soul Eater, Killua from Hunter x Hunter. I love the snarky, obnoxious little shits.
I mean, same here. If I had to name other heroes, I should probably mention. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and pretty much every single character in that role is a snarky bastard. So
it's hard not
there's
to
a
make
reason
a
why.
one because it's easier to put humor into the situation and have them say snappy, horrible one-liners. And not to say that I don't like Jack. He's a fantastic lead for what kind of intention they were going for. If anything, the impression I get from Jack being set up the way he is, there's many different episodes that are a love letter or parody of or subversion of movie genres and tropes. They're pretty much they really are playing up the idea of the classic samurai hero or the classic samurai displaced from his natural setting and how he'd react if he were in a Western or a post-apocalyptic future. Or
Yeah, I don't know. Samurai Jack as a character, he's kind of a weird exception to a to the types of characters I usually like seeing. Just as a bit of a comparison, I don't think it's particularly controversial to mention that Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman were not that good. I mean, I'm sure there's someone out there who's going to be defending that movie, and if you do like that movie, good for you. I usually can't stand characters who take everything so seriously. But I think another thing is we get the comic relief in other ways throughout the series, despite the fact that Jack is just a really interesting character in a lot of ways, because by all means he should be a flat character, but I don't think he is. He comes across as both really complex and really fun to watch, but I can't for the life of me figure out a good way of putting into words why he's the exception.
When it comes to working with the idea of a samurai displaced in time or in an odd situation, Jack can come across as resourceful and adaptive due to the montage they showed of him learning all these different skills and trades and stuff. Such in childhood, pretty much being trained since birth to be this big grand hero. And then you have other scenes where it's complemented by him playing off the Scotsman as the straight man to this incredibly eccentric, over-the-top character. Jack has a sense of humor. There's moments where he smiles at other people, observes how they interact with each other. And there's other times where he shows some kind of vulnerability or weakness. He's allowed to be more than just the trope. He's allowed to have moments where he bumbles or trips up every once in a while, except in the scenes where he needs to be the big, awesome hero. Season 5 is just the point where they decided to push that particular dimension of his character just a little bit further and explore the idea of really making him more pronounced and gray than he was before.
That's a great way of putting it.
In short, Jack is pretty much allowed to breathe. They push beyond the trope where appropriate.
That's a great way of putting it. I don't think I could have said it like that. Yeah, Samurai Jack is allowed to feel feelings.
Pretty much.
Okay.
For a minute here.
Go ahead.
Thinking about this, when you have cartoons, like cartoons with stock characters and just kind of generic, mediocre setups, the reason why a cartoon like Sidekicks or half a Teletoons stuff that they put in as filler, or even Butch Hartman's new cartoon, Bunsen is a Beast, yes, I'm going there. The reason why they're so forgettable is because these characters don't have many other traits beyond just one or two defined traits. They're pretty much just a cookie cutter archetype or a shade of some kind of archetype, and they're played as closely to the vest as they possibly can be. They aren't allowed to breathe. They aren't allowed to do something different or a bit out there. It's kind of ridiculous to compare this to how Jack comes across, but I guess where I wanted to lead with this is if you're so determined to have a cast of archetypes playing off of each other, you got to make sure, okay, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to backpedal a little bit here. When it comes to setting up a story, your core is the characters. That's really where every other thing stems from. Was going to draw the audience in. Some of the better storytelling I've seen in just about every other medium has a strong cast of characters, and you could pick them out of their environment, put them anywhere, and they'd still be fun to watch. It's how they'd interact with a ridiculous or absurd idea, how they'd interact with the mundane environment. If you took Jack and put him in the laundromat with Johnny Bravo, he's still incredibly interesting in that situation because you're wondering how he's going to react in this modern environment, what he's going to do. He's the kind of character where you can take and put him in a bunch of different ridiculous situations and have fun things play out. It's because of how he plays off of other characters. If someone's going to write for Samurai Jack, they're also going to write very colorful or interesting characters and environments for him to play off of.
Okay. Towards the end of the episode, and this is where things get really spoilery. Not that it's that big a deal because we've been spoiling the entire episode throughout the entire talk that we've been having. But Hoshi, Samurai Jack and Hoshi are stuck on an island. I'm wanting to say that they're stranded, but I'm also going to say that they're going to be off of it by the next episode, possibly without explanation. But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is what Hoshi does and how everything goes about. Hoshi picks up her weapon and notices Jack resting on the other side of the island. Hoshi is completely free to do as she was do whatever it is she was intending to do, which is kill Jack, and she likely would have succeeded were it not for a ladybug flying by. There cue a flashback to Ashi's childhood where she's distracted by another ladybug and is promptly yelled at by the leader of the Daughters of a Coup, who then proceeds to squish the ladybug. This is already kind of a common thing. I mean, I think Miraculous Ladybug is a really good example of something that has taken the idea of ladybugs being related to luck and pushing it towards premise. But here we see the villain. We see a villain unambiguously killing a innocent creature, commonly representative of luck. And also, if you want to go a little bit deeper into symbolism, the ladybug has some connections to the Virgin Mary. I don't think they were going for that in the episode, but fun fact. And then we see Samurai Jack let the ladybug land on him without him killing it. The intentions of the episode are incredibly clear. The sequence is really pretty, and I think it gets across everything we're about to examine better than I think we could actually ever talk about. But yeah, I found that sequence really interesting, and I found and I feel like something needs to be said about that. The ladybug, the death. I mean, I know it's all obvious. This is basic cinematography. This is basic storytelling here. The ladybug represents something. You feature the bad guy doing something bad to it, and you feature the good guy doing something good to it. What are your thoughts?
I'd say it was pretty cut and dry that was Ashi's quote unquote start of an epiphany. She's starting to mull more over whether or not she really wants to stay the course and fulfill her life's destiny, because there were moments in her childhood where she'd look out at the bigger world and wonder what was out there and get distracted by ladybugs and wonder, what is this creature? What else is out there? What's beyond my mission in life? It's interesting. It is kind of interesting what kind of timing that is, though. The timing here, since she spent the rest of the episode perfectly okay with the idea of dying if it meant Jack died along with her. She was still hell-bent on staying the course and fulfilling her pretty much suicide mission in life. That she's this disposable minion for a coup. That it's just kind of interesting to think that this is really the first time she's starting to take a few steps back and breathe. That the moment she does it is when Jack's sitting there relaxing and the whole ladybug thing. What I'm kind of wondering is, did Jack know that she wasn't going to attack or that things would calm down? He probably would have been able to dodge whatever attack she tried to pull at him, but it's just kind of interesting if that was kind of rolling around in the back of his mind, whether he can read her to the point that he knows whether or not she's going to pull something crazy, or just how good a judge of character he is. I can imagine he knows how to read people. And maybe a bit awkward now, since he may have been out of society for several years, riding around on a motorcycle and stuff. Just since he has gone down the proverbial rabbit hole, kind of a loner to the point where he's sitting there and he really needs help. It's obvious he needs some kind of help if he's sitting there talking to hallucinations and such. But just random musings on my part.
I kind of like you bring up Jack's reaction, whether he knows it, whether he knows whether he knew that Hoshi was going to attempt to kill him again, or whether he knew that Hoshi was going to have a change of heart. I kind of like the ambiguity of it. There is a more cynical interpretation of the scene, I imagine, where Jack just straight up accepts the fact that I saved the girl, she kills me, whatever. And we've seen his hallucin. It's been made clear that Jack is already prone to suicidal thoughts anyway. At the very least, Samurai Jack could have felt that he at least redeemed himself by saving this one person, and whether he deserves death or not is up to her. That is one way of interpreting that. Another way of interpreting it is, like you said, he knew Samurai Jack is good at reading people, and he knew that she would stop. I don't know. This is not something I was particularly thinking about until you mentioned it. I like the ambiguity is my thing, I guess.
There's a ladybug thing, and then there's the other dimension of Jack just sitting there and relaxing. Actually smiling for once. There's definitely a lot to think about or mull over there. That he's starting to find some kind of peace of mind that he...
Fuck.
What happened?
I hit the headphone wire to my computer speakers again.
Oh.
So you heard that buzzing again. It's not like connected to anything. The speaker's just on. It'd be in my computer were it not for the fact that I have a set of headphones in my computer right now, and I don't want to have that echo issue. Yeah.
Echo! My name is Ed!
The, There's also, Todd. Okay, the last thing on my list, and it's really stupid in comparison to everything else we just mentioned. I have needle phobia, and it started raining red needles, and I was really squicked out by that scene. I mean, it's really the scene where it started raining red needle-like things.
No. I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, it's probably not as bad as I'm making it out to be, but yeah, that was something I could have, granted, I will say this, some people actually pay for this. That made the scene worth it in my mind.
Yeah.
But just the awkwardness of that scene where Jack is picking out little red needles between both of them, and then brings up acupuncture to break the awkwardness. but he's removing needles from a person who wants him dead. So it's already kind of an situation. I don't know. That's just the last thing. That might be a good ending point, unless you want to argue about Rice Krispies.
Huh?
Never mind. I brought it up. You said you wanted to fight about. Never mind.
Why would I want to argue about Rice Krispies?
No, I said something and then we disagreed last night. I said that Rice Krispies almost make a better topping for desserts.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's just a really silly thing.
Better to end on the silly Jack trying to lighten the mood with the acupuncture comment and how fantastic that was.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we're about done here. Would you agree? Unless is there anything else you want to mention?
Nope, I'm done.
All right. It's called my name is Tom Raster. That was the Romance Scrooge, and we will see you later.
Good night, everybody.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry, Cartoon Critic. I didn't realize you were there. My page wasn't. Oh shoot! I didn't realize you were there. Hi, Cartoon Critic. I didn't realize you were there.
Hi, person.
Hi, you are in the comments. You are like the only person in the comments because I did like this really stupid thing of I kept the video unlisted for like half the stream.
That's fantastic.
Okay, let's just before we truly go, let's just address some of the things the Cartoon Critic mentioned.
All right.
I'm so sorry, Cartoon Critic. You're there and you're having a conversation. I didn't mean to leave you out. I was on a completely different tab. Does the ladybug represent purity? Well, like I mentioned, there's already a connection with the Virgin Mary. Traditionally speaking, it's not as literal in the case of Samurai Jack, but yes, I almost definitely feel that it represents purity. Does a coup no longer use robots? No, he still uses robots. To me, it feels kind of weird that Samurai Jack, which was once a kid's show, now has blood in it and adult themes to it. It works. It's aimed at exactly the same audience it was aimed at initially. It's just that audience kind of grew up with it. Rice Krispies. Oh God, will this be another food stream? Bye, hi. I was once the cartoon guy. It's fine. Okay, well, I think that's about it. For the second time, this is us closing the stream. My name is Tom Raster. This was the Romance Scrooge, and the person who I was previously screaming about was the Cartoon Critic. Thank you and good night.
Good.